Hello, Doctor Who fans, and welcome to another amazing, slightly demonic episode of Who Corner to Corner. I'm Paul, and I'm joined by my good friend Jeff, and also by our very good friend Mr. Al Dewar from Character Options. We are going to be sitting here. Yes. Look at him all dressed up there.
With the boy, shouldn't they?
You should, yeah. You should. You need to wear the third Doctor kind of garb as well, really. But we do appreciate the hat. The hat looks amazing.
I can rock a frilly jacket as well as John.
Anyone can rock a frilly jacket, Joe. It's the wearing and the bearing that really counts.
Yeah.
Pertwee pretensions notwithstanding, we are here. We're going to watch actually the Daemons in this episode, that classic 1970s something or other episode, 19th of June 1971. There you go. That's when the first episode airs. I've just got it on my little computer over here, so I can have a look. So we're going to watch the first couple of episodes of this. Hopefully we are going to commentate our way through it with a general kind of chit chat and bants and whatnot and what have you. We may even start discussing a few character options things, because there is a brand new third Doctor Vortex set. Look at that. Jeff is lifting it up. I've got my sonic screwdriver, and on my shelf there's a giant maggot. So
I thought you were getting rid of those.
What, the
maggot has kicked off with abandon, by the way.
Just chucking them in every packet just to try and get through the stock, is it? Chuck a maggot in there, mate. Go on, just chuck some maggots in. That'll be fine.
What do you mean Peppa Pig doesn't come with a maggot?
Right. You can see the way this is going to turn out.
I must say, I've been enjoying people showing their maggots on Twitter today.
Show us your hashtag. Show us your maggot.
The best quote I saw all evening was one of my friends who said, "I'm looking for a semi-upright one." And I was like, I'm
Sounds a bit rude.
I'll ask no more questions.
Aren't we all, darling?
Aren't we all?
Al,
there he is.
Yeah, this brand new head sculpt for the third Doctor is based on his look there, isn't he? In this title sequence.
Yeah. It was quite interesting watching Ed explain on on one of the podcasts we did this week, and me explain, and I was like, I'm after an early head and a very benevolent smile, and Ed's like, oh yeah, we started with an old head. I don't remember that.
Don't. Was he not at the briefing?
Apparently not.
Do you know what? This first episode of the Demons for me is probably the best out of the 5 of them. I think it is so full of atmosphere, and this opening really sells it, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, it's one of those ones that really suffers from a bit of rambling in the middle. I totally agree with you on that, Paul. There's some bits of this I absolutely love, but there's also some bits I find sort of chronically slow. And then there's some stuff thrown in that's really odd, like car chases. It was a perfect thing. Let's have a car chase. For what reason?
For why? Well, just why not? So there is the rather wonderful Miss Hawthorne, the local White Witch. I remember reading a book of the Demons way before I ever saw it on TV, and I remember her being described as the local White Witch. And because I didn't actually live in a village, I lived in a slightly more urban built-up area, I thought, wow, all these villages, they have a local White Witch. Like you'd have a local doctor, or a local postman. They've got a local White Witch.
Well, it was, and it was really weird in that era. I don't know if you had the same thing, Paul, but because I remember reading some of those books like Dennis Wheatley and stuff like that. It was like Black Witches, White Witches, and this story, this opener is a real.
It's full on into that, isn't it? Yeah, it was the Willy book. The Devil Rides Out. It's something or other, wasn't it? But I think during the 70s, well, certainly through the 60s and then into the 70s, there was this massive resurgence, probably through Hammer, House of Horror, wasn't there, on the kind of rural, witchy, spooky, kind of devilish sort of stories. And we had, some even the Americans kind of got in on the act with things like Rosemary's Baby, wasn't it, the Roman Polanski film? And then over here we had the John, Edward Woodward, The Wicker Man. That was what I was trying to think of. All of that kind of stuff.
Folklore and
folklore.
Tales,
That's
wasn't
what
it?
I was looking for. Yeah.
If you ever get a chance, there's a brilliant writer called... Sorry, Jeff, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say they tried to do a bit of folklore in 73 Yards, didn't they, in last series of Doctor Who, and it started out brilliantly, and then kind of went off pissed for me. So that's that.
Well, thanks for sledgehammering that one in, Jeff. You had to get that in.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's hard. I think one of the problems with horror per se is it's hard to keep the levels of horror up. You know, you can start with a sort of premise, but it's like all things that are supernatural. You know, at some point you have to start explaining it, and then it begins to fall apart.
Yeah.
You can do, yeah. Or you sort of somehow manage to kind of keep the mystery going, or keep elements of the mystery going. Like, and we start here, don't we? This is the Doctor with Joe Grant and Mike Yates in his garage, explaining. The Doctor explains why there's no such thing as magic. He pretends to show Bessie driving on its own, but actually explains it's a remote control. Joe, look, I've got the clicker right here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's interesting that they picked up that aspect in the 60th and sort of continued it into Series 1, which was the sort of trying to bring back the unexplainable and the supernatural. I mean, there's elements of this, and there's elements of White Blue Yonder, which initially I really didn't like, but I absolutely...
That's a good thought. I never thought of that. Yeah.
I think I've said it before. That's why I think I like some of the early Pertwee films. They have, whether it's the filmmaking technique or, you know, just the way they lit things or the way it was done back then, but they have a very good way of unsettling you and just leaving you a little bit. It's like, you know how there's certain sounds, like there's certain notes. I always, and I did it before, so I'll do it again. But
Devil's Hump.
The bit in Image of the Fendal where he's in the forest, and it's just that low note that just starts going, and it's like, it just puts you on edge.
It does. Yeah, you're right. I think they love tapping into that during those Hinchcliffe years, didn't they? They're throwing everything. Sorry, I was going to say they're throwing everything at this. It's almost like Barry Letts and Robert Sloman have kind of raided the glossary of satanic kind of storytelling, and they're just throwing it out. We've had Beltane, we've got the Horned Beast, we've got the Devil's Hunt, we've got Devil's End, we've got everything. It's just thrown in there. So if you've got no mistakes at all, that we're dealing potentially with a devilish influence, just look at the script. There's no mistake.
But that was a great bit there where like, you know, everybody's standing watching the TV.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the Doctor's like, we're going. And Joe's like, why? And he's like, she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
You can't let those idiots open that.
Something there. Yeah.
I like
and it's never fully explained why, because he doesn't. I guess the Doctor doesn't really know it that.
No, that's it. It's and this is why it's almost like this first story. Oh, sorry, this first episode is like, it has a different vibe to the rest of the episodes, the following four. I think this one has its own atmosphere and everything else, and it sets up a lot of stuff. And then it's almost like it goes into, I'm sorry if I'm going to offend a lot of people, but standard kind of Doctor Who storytelling mode. You know,
it does.
You know, there's great bits throughout. We'll get to those as we watch it, but this first episode is almost a thing on its own, I think.
We had a couple of comments from people about this episode, so I just want to read one out for now. This is from Jack Mayfield. He says, quintessential perfect story. To coin a phrase, I'm a sucker for any story with cavorting druids in it, which I love. He says, such as The Stones of Blood, Canine and Company, A Girl's Best Friend. So are you guys fans of cavorting druids?
I mean... Is it impossible not to be a fan? I don't know.
No, I don't think you can dislike cavorting druids.
Well, I think what's interesting is that we take so much now as either quaint or we take it for granted. Things like maypole dancers and, you know, the horses with the sheets and the horse skull that sort of dance through the village, aka the Wicker Man. You know, a lot of that was to do with different times of the year as harvest, you know, sort of more pagan
festivals
and stuff. And yet it's kind of like the Christian church, it's kind of absorbed, you know, all these elements into it. But I think it does. It does create a. Yeah, folklore is amazing.
Sorry, this is a great joke here, where the Doctor turns the map the right way round for Joe. Apparently, is based on a thing that happened while they were driving to the studio or to a location somewhere. Casey Manning was reading the map upside down. They got lost. Pertwee looks over and goes, "Ah, Katie," whips it round the right way. So they thought they'd use that in the show.
Well, it's fitting for the character and obviously
definitely,
quite true to life. Yeah. I was going to say, if you've ever been to Boss Castle in Cornwall, there's the Museum of Witchcraft there, and it's a really fascinating place full of all these old trinkets and all the stuff you were talking about, Paul. The rocks having power to them and the wind and stuff. And we bought this little poster that says the witches of Boss Castle selling the wind to the sailors and stuff, and it's just painting and
it's amazing how all this travelled, because if you go over to the Americas, a lot of that stuff went with them. And Maine and places like that, where there's and witchcraft.
At Salem and
Salem, exactly. So it's all it was really strong. It did.
I think because a lot of those communities were kind of ostracised by sort of growing and persisting sort of Christian religion, Catholicism and Protestantism and Methodism and all those kind of things. And I think when they saw the roots of the new world, there's this open land where we can just establish and grow and be who we want to be, sort of thing.
Yeah, but that that's an important point, because Christianity, in my opinion, has an unpopular theory of the week, but it has a lot to answer for. I mean, the witches would have been, in the old days, the old wise women who had herbs and poultices that would help people. The Druids were the religion before Christianity came along, but they're suddenly made to be evil and pagan and unclean.
Change the narrative.
But that whole inversion of what these people probably originally were. So things like white witches and dark witches, how many people were burned at the stake?
Exactly.
They were the local midwife, or
that's it.
Well, it's
what you do, isn't it?
Fear of the unknown and the different, isn't it? And
it's partly that, but I think also, Jeff, it's a way of getting rid of unsavoury elements or any threat to your own established authority or rising authority. You see it repeated so many times. It's like, you create an enemy by blaming people who don't have a voice or can't speak, who can't speak for themselves. You blame all your problems on them. So whether it's the old lady down at the bottom of the road, or whether it's the family from a foreign country or whatever it is, you see it right now, right this time, and suddenly you blame those people for everything. They become demonized, literally, subhuman somehow, and people gang up, and all kinds of shit happens.
So when I used to live at home. We lived in a house in a single track road with about 6 other houses in the middle of this country estate, and it was pretty spooky at night, to the point where I couldn't play Resident Evil when I was home alone past about 11 p.m. because it was too bloody terrifying. And that shot with the Doctor and Joe driving down the road, that reminded me. I once went to see Woman in Black at the cinema, and if you guys have seen it, it's a superb film.
I've got the booklet up there, actually. It's on my to-read.
Right. A really good film. And I went with a friend of mine, quite a sort of tough-looking guy. And as the film progresses, it gets more and more terrifying. And my mate turned to me and he went, "I don't like it," like this. I thought, if he's not liking it, it's really doing its trick. But when I drove home that night, I had to take a detour because of a road closure, and I ended up going through these winding country roads, and the car lights are flickering between the trees and stuff, and that shot there reminded me, and it was bloody terrifying. So good.
Have either of you had any kind of actual spooky experiences?
I have had some weird ones. Yeah. I used to work in a supermarket years ago when I was in my sort of late teens, early 20s. I was on one of those management fast track kind of things, And so I had the keys to the shop, which I thought was great at the time, but it actually meant I had to answer all the alarm calls, which was really not good at all. So if the alarm went off in the middle of the night and I was on call, I'd have to drive down there, open up the shop. And I always went in with my mate, and we used to wind each other up, like, you know, we'd just go in and sort of turn lights on and off and try to shit each other up and everything else. But there's one time we started doing that. We were in this particular shop, and it had a bit of a story that the guy, it used to be a cinema, and the guy, like, you know, sort of hung himself in the projection room, and his ghost still haunted the supermarket. Long story short, right?
Cool.
All the lights in the shop went off, right? He wasn't tricking me. We were both together. All the lights went off. We were in the warehouse, and the only thing coming through was a blue square of light from the back of the warehouse, from a room we hadn't seen before. And we kind of walked in, because we kind of scaring each other senseless as we were walking up to it, and it was a blue light from one of those fly traps, and it was in a like a butcher's preparation room or something. And two guys, right? You just imagine this, right? Two guys, we go, go on mate, daring each other, go on, look at you, like that sort of thing. Get off me, mate, get off me. I mean, that was about as scary as it got, but it was terrifying. We thought we saw something move within, but anyways. What about you then?
Oh, I've had a few. In fact, our whole family has. Weirdly, my oldest brother, who's a determined ghost hunter, has never seen anything. But
really?
My sister woke up several times, aged 13 or thereabouts, to see a green man floating above her bed.
No.
Really?
My other brother went.
That makes my story sound a bit shit, doesn't it? Really?
Well, my other brother went to a farmhouse in France on an exchange visit and ended up basically in this farmhouse. The whole family slept downstairs, which he couldn't quite figure out. And every single night, footsteps came to the outside of his door. The door didn't open.
No.
Footsteps came all the way across the room to the side of his bed. And then stopped and stepped away. And in one of the houses that we lived in, we had a purple room at the top of the house that nobody. That was Langton Gate, which is in Scotland.
And never go into it. Just always stay clear.
Footsteps would come down. Footsteps would come there was 3 floors, so footsteps would come all the way down 3 flights of stairs in the middle of the night with nobody there. I've seen a ghost walk right past me, and it would come as close as it did to the window as it walked past.
Whoa.
It would have had to walk through a wall.
That's really weird.
I've also been physically attacked, as in felt like something was trying to. In the previous house to the one I'm in now, both my wife and I, she didn't tell me. I didn't tell her because I didn't want to make her.
Yeah.
And then she eventually told me she'd had exactly the same thing happen to her.
Wow.
And again, you could hear creepy noises. It was always a sound like somebody was walking around upstairs. And Jasmine, when she was about 2, just sort of, we would sort of say, "Oh, we're going to do prayers. Yeah, we'll do prayers, blah blah blah," and it would be like, "Oh, God bless that person," and then she was like, "Oh, God bless Baba," who has his grandpa, who I think is also the ghost of my son.
Really?
And I said, "Oh, why did you say that?" And she said, "Because he's standing over there."
What?
So it's not. And when I was at my parents' house, something. This was after my mum passed away, and something definitely.
Kissed your cheek.
I said to my sister in the morning, "Why the bloody hell did you let the dogs wander up and down the corridor and come in and sort of touch my face?" And she said the dogs were in my room all night.
Wow, really? It's weird, isn't it? There's weird stuff like that.
No, I'm joking. So that sequence there, I think, was quite brave and a bit flawed at the same time, because they did the right thing, which is not to try and show the giant demon. They only showed the guy looking up, and I think that was the right choice. And those giant footprints on the ground. But
That's
then when
a great shot.
landed, there was a tiny little spray paint.
Yeah.
It was kind of like.
But the idea is good, isn't it?
Empty across.
Yeah, no, ghosts and aliens and myths and cryptozoology and stuff. I find that sort of thing fascinating. And I think for me, probably quite a lot of that started with so my uncle lives on the side of Loch Ness, and within that world, he's quite well known, and he co-founded the Loch Ness Monster Museum, and
I think you told me this, mate. Yeah.
yeah, I might have done. I've been up there at Loch Ness when they've had sonars, the sonar stuff over on the boats and things, and heard explanations for all of the legendary photos from him, what they are, but then the handful of things that are unexplained and what it could be in there, and that sort of thing's always fired my capture my imagination, and ghost stories, and like whenever I go somewhere like to Cornwall or Wales or America, I will try and find a local ghost story book and pick one
all
up.
right.
And, yeah,
immerse yourself in that.
Fascinated by that sort of stuff. Yeah.
It
So
is. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, nature and mysticism just kind of go hand in hand. I think.
I mean, it's good food for the imagination as much as anything as well, isn't it? Who doesn't like being a little bit scared or creeped out by certain things?
Even in this, but even in this, even that name, Mr. Magister, there's a certain sort of slightly unnerving aspect to that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I totally agree.
The name Magister quite sort of vaguely threatening, and I really don't know why.
So this is a great question. This is from Jonathan Wilkins, who is the editor of the Doctor Who Titan comics, and I'm not entirely sure if Jonathan's serious here or not, but I'm going to ask on his behalf anyway. Jonathan asks, would a Meglos figure be possible?
Oh, God, a Meglos figure. Yes, it would. So, sorry, this might be related to something I said this week on Ellie Base, which I tend to sort of, what's the word, wax lyrical, but I was thinking, so it concerned me a little bit that the Third Doctor set, as nice as it was, kind of does seem to have slightly alienated people because of the Sonic being included, which some people did want.
I loved it. I loved the Sonic.
I really liked it.
Literally worn the battery out. I love it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. But what was interesting was I then was sort of thinking more about the if we did the Fourth Doctor, if we did it, what would you do? And one of the thoughts that I had was, could we, if we did it, would we do a 2-pack? Would we do a Tom as he was at the start of his tenure in the red jacket with a new head, with the hat and without the hat? Because I think we could probably do a better sculpt. And then at the other end, do we do him in the season 18 outfit,
the big
with
burgundy
the
heavy
and the burgundy, but with the hat, which we've never done. And actually, the Meglos head could be included in theory as part of that, because if we made it with swappable heads, then in theory you could take it to the nth degree. It depends. So there's also the blanked on the episode, but it's the one with the Famasi in it and the
the Leisure Hive.
The Leisure Hive. So there's a bunch of different heads you could in theory do if you didn't have a lot of accessories. So you could have, start Tom with hat, without hat. You could have season 18 with the shoes. You could have it with a new head, with the hat, without the hat. You could have Meglos head, and you could have the old head. It might be tied to that. It's interesting. I've watched Meglos. I would like to say recently.
You could just put a cactus in the box. That would do, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. If you're talking about Meglos as the actual talking cactus,
yeah, or the Tom Baker halfway point.
He put a picture of Spiky Tom, so I'm assuming.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one because of the way the heads are made, having all those little spikes. I suspect it would be.
It could be quite tricky, couldn't it? Yeah. It might end up being little bumps rather than long spikes. With a green paint job.
I'm trying to think of other clever things you could do, but unless you made it a face swap version.
Yeah, it comes with its own pins.
Yeah,
pins in it.
Yeah, you could do it like that. Yeah,
it's probably
you end up with so many swappable heads.
Yeah,
no other accessories. But maybe that's what people would like. So
who knows?
So
who knows? Meglos head is interesting.
Good question.
Oh well, Jonathan will be pleased to hear that. Jamie asks, can/will Doctors appear more than once in the Vortex series? So, for example, could another Pertwee variant release later down the line?
Yes, and again, I did sort of. This was when I was waxing lyrical. Yes, what I've said is it will not, absolutely will not appear at retail. It isn't on any other plans for this year, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Could it appear as a sort of true season 7 version? Say in 2026? Yeah, possibly. I wouldn't be against. I've talked quite. Also mentioned the fact I think that I would quite like to include a Metabilis crystal and maybe a dematerialization circuit.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
I'd love to do another Pertwee, but I think it'd be too soon to do it again.
Yeah.
Sort of immediately. But I've got an idea for next year that I'm playing around with that
Okay.
Yeah.
might work.
We're going to Comic-Con, aren't we?
Oh yes, we are.
We are.
We're going to Comic Con.
Yeah.
Yahoo! My
in May.
first Comic Con. I've never been to one before. I'm a total noob, a total virgin when it comes to this
I
kind
haven't
of thing.
been for a very long time.
Yeah.
My understanding is, based on my last experience, it's
Yeah.
just a massive sales place that it's all
Exactly.
about.
Yeah, it's just like an exhibition of stuff in it, but it should be stuff that I like. You know, I'm into like sci-fi, comics, games, and whatnot. So it should be fun, you know. And I've been to many other conventions where they're not fun, you know, stuff that I have to work in, like blooming selling TVs and appliances and shit like that, and housewares and stuff, you know. And I've been to many of those and enjoyed it. So why not go to a convention which sells stuff that I actually like?
Yeah.
I think
Why
it'd be
not?
brilliant. I think it'd be brilliant. I think it'd be good. It sounds like there's a bunch of people going as
Yes,
well.
it should be. And most importantly, we'll be together. So, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that bit. Oh well, can't have it all, I suppose.
Every silver lining has a cloud, as they say.
Yeah.
Oh, it does indeed.
Oh, no,
I've practiced that move as well.
He's smashing stuff up now.
See how robust the toys are.
But you don't have to throw it over across the room, mate.
I'm like a ninja. You see that move? Right, on that note, thank you if you're still listening.
Yes.
It's time to call it good night. We shall join you on our next episode. Rubbish hours. Right. Ta-ta for now, people, and we'll see you
you,
next
everyone.
time
Thanks,
on the
everyone.
Demons. Woo!
Dematerialize next week. Yes.
That's beautiful. Look at that hat. Where's the scarf? You got
Hat and the scarf.
scarf. There you go. Look at that.
Look
It's
at that.
Dr. Dewar in the
That's
house.
how most people prefer me.
I particularly
Oh,
like the
yeah.
look with the glasses as well. You know, it's very
Yeah.
doctorish.
We have discussed the costumes, haven't we?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
So we got to get on that. I'm just going to leave that there for people.
Could do my Pertwee autumn.